March 1993. New York was about to face something no one was ready for. Not just a snowstorm, not just a bad winter day, but a monster so powerful it shut down cities, buried roads, crushed travel, and turned ordinary homes into survival zones overnight. People went to sleep expecting snow. They woke up inside a disaster. Cars vanished under mountains of white. Airports shut down. Power failed. Families were trapped. And for many, the storm became a fight to survive. This wasn't just a blizzard. It was one of the most devastating winter storms in American history. And this is the terrifying story of the blizzard of 1993. Known as the storm of the century, the blizzard of 1993 slammed the eastern United States with a level of force that felt almost unreal. It stretched from Cuba to Canada, affected millions of people, and left behind destruction, fear, and unforgettable memories. But in places like New York, the storm felt especially brutal. Massive snowfall, dangerous winds, whiteout conditions, freezing temperatures, and a city forced to stop. Today, we're going back to that terrifying weekend to see how the storm formed, how New York was hit, what people lived through, and why this blizzard is still remembered as one of the deadliest winter disasters ever recorded. In early March 1993, weather forecasters began seeing something deeply disturbing on their radar. A powerful weather system was forming in the Gulf of Mexico. That alone wasn't unusual, but this storm had the perfect ingredients to become a nightmare. Warm, moist air from the Gulf collided with a blast of bitter Arctic air moving down from the north. As the pressure dropped, the system rapidly intensified. Meteorologists started realizing this wasn't going to be a normal winter storm. This thing was growing fast and growing violent. By the time forecasts spread across the East Coast, the warnings were serious. Heavy snow, hurricane-force wind gusts in some areas, blizzard conditions, possible coastal flooding, massive travel disruption. For New Yorkers, it sounded bad. But even then, most people still couldn't imagine just how extreme it would become. Because this wasn't just one city's storm. This was a giant weather machine, one that would hammer the entire eastern half of the United States. And once it began, there was no stopping it. One March 12th and 13th, 1993, the storm exploded. Snow started falling, then the winds picked up, then the sky disappeared. What began as a winter storm quickly turned into a full-scale blizzard. In New York, snowfall intensified rapidly. Roads became dangerous within hours. Visibility dropped so low that in many places people could barely see across the street. And the wind made everything worse. Blowing snow erased roads, sidewalks, driveways, and landmarks. Snowdrifts piled up high enough to trap doors shut and bury vehicles completely. Imagine opening your front door and seeing nothing but a wall of snow. That's what many people faced. The city that never sleeps suddenly slowed to a crawl. Cars were abandoned. Buses struggled or stopped. Flights were cancelled. Train schedules were disrupted. Emergency crews were overwhelmed. And as the storm intensified, people began to realize something chilling. This wasn't just inconvenient weather. This was dangerous, life-threatening dangerous. New York is used to winter. Snowstorms are part of life. Cold weather is expected. People prepare. But this was different. The blizzard of 1993 didn't just bring snow. It brought force. In some parts of New York State, snowfall totals became staggering. Winds howled hard enough to create blinding whiteout conditions. Temperatures dropped, and the wind chill made it feel even more brutal. For families inside their homes, the storm became a waiting game. Would the power stay on? Would the heat keep working? Would the roads clear in time if someone needed help? For anyone stranded outside, every minute mattered. Driving became almost impossible. Even experienced drivers could lose control, get stuck, or become trapped in freezing conditions. And if your car stalled, or if you got buried in drifting snow, help might not reach you quickly. That's what made this storm so terrifying. It wasn't just the amount of snow. It was the combination of everything: heavy snowfall, extreme wind, bitter cold, zero visibility, collapsing travel systems, and people trapped exactly where they were. In a city and state built around movement, the blizzard created the one thing New Yorkers hate most: total paralysis. We talk about historic storms. It's easy to focus on snowfall numbers, wind speeds, and weather maps. But the real story is always the people. Families rushed to grocery stores before the storm hit, trying to grab enough food, batteries, candles, and supplies. Parents worried about keeping children warm. Older residents worried about losing heat. Workers tried to get home before roads became impossible. Some didn't make it in time. Across the region, people were stranded in cars, stuck in homes, trapped in airports, or cut off from normal life almost instantly. For emergency responders, it was chaos. Snow-clogged roads slowed ambulances. Rescue operations became harder. Visibility made travel dangerous, even for trained crews. And while some people remember the storm as an incredible snow event, others remember fear. The sound of the wind against the windows, the silence of empty roads, the anxiety of not knowing how long it would last, the feeling of being cut off from the outside world. That's what transforms a storm into a memory that lasts for decades. Not just the weather, but the helplessness it creates. So why is the blizzard of 1993 remembered as one of the deadliest winter storms in U.S. history? Because it wasn't deadly in just one way. Some people lost their lives in traffic accidents caused by icy roads and whiteout conditions. Others were exposed to freezing temperatures. Some were trapped without quick access to help. Across the eastern United States, the storm caused widespread fatalities and massive disruption. And the scale of the storm made everything worse. This wasn't one town getting buried. This was a multi-state disaster affecting tens of millions of people. Air travel was crippled. Road travel became dangerous or impossible. Power failures hit some areas. Emergency systems were pushed to the limit. The blizzard's reach was so enormous that it felt less like a local weather event and more like a regional shutdown. That's why the name Storm of the Century stuck, because storms happen every winter. But storms that stop an entire region, terrify millions, and leave a scar on history, those are rare. Very rare. One of the most shocking things about the blizzard of 1993 was its sheer size and power. This storm impacted a huge part of the eastern United States all at once. It wasn't isolated, it wasn't small, and it wasn't easy to escape. Meteorologists still study it because it combines several dangerous elements into one event: a rapidly intensifying, low-pressure system, abundant Gulf moisture, Arctic cold air, intense wind fields, and a track that allowed it to slam major population centers. That combination created a storm with blizzard conditions in some areas, severe weather in others, and devastating consequences across the east. In simple words, it was the perfect setup for a historic disaster, and New York stood directly in the path of its fury. Eventually, the snow eased, the winds calmed, and the skies began to clear. But what the storm left behind was staggering. Buried neighborhoods, snow-covered highways, canceled flights, disrupted businesses, damaged infrastructure, and thousands upon thousands of people trying to dig their lives back out. For many families, the next stage wasn't survival. It was recovery, shoveling for hours, checking on neighbors, clearing cars, restocking supplies, repairing what had failed, and even after roads reopened and life slowly returned to normal, the storm remained unforgettable, because some storms pass through a place, but others become part of its history. This was one of those storms, still remembered as one of the most powerful winter storms America has ever seen. For New York, it was a brutal reminder that even the strongest cities can be brought to a halt by nature. A storm that buried roads, shut down travel, trapped families, tested emergency systems, and left behind stories people still tell to this day. The storm of the century wasn't just about snow. It was about fear, survival, and the terrifying moment when an ordinary weekend turned into a historic disaster. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more powerful real stories, extreme weather history, and unbelievable events from America's past. And tell me in the comments, do you think a storm like this could shut down New York the same way today?